Chapter 14. It had been quite some time since I found myself in this horrible world, and I had almost forgotten what it felt like to be there, scared. But this time, things were different. I wasn't chained up, and so far, I hadn't seen any of those creepy magical creatures. At least, not yet. Let's end this now. I shouted, but my voice only echoed back at me. I walked freely through the never-ending haze of the forest, but there was nothing, no creatures, nothing at all. Until... "You look just like your mother," I heard a voice coming from the front, though there was no one there. "Who are you?" I yelled into the empty forest. "I am your father," the voice whispered right behind me, and I froze. I could feel someone standing behind me, breathing on my neck, claiming to be my father, the father who didn't exist. "I don't have a father," I said through clenched teeth, spinning around to face the stranger. "But you're wrong. Everyone has a father, whether they're alive or dead," he said. He was dressed in a long black robe with long, black hair. His face was pale and gaunt, like he hadn't eaten in forever, but he still looked young and handsome. How could he be my father? I stared at him with suspicion, staying on high alert, just in case he tried to attack. "Which one are you, dead or alive?" I asked, not taking my eyes off his dark eyes. "Neither," he replied. "What?" I said, confused. What did he mean by that? I studied him carefully, keeping my guard up. "I know you have questions," he said casually. "Follow me," he added, turning and walking into the darkness. I hesitated for a second or two, but then I decided to follow. It was hard to keep up with him. It didn't even look like he was walking the same way I was, more like he was floating above the ground, and his long robe made my suspicion seem true. After what felt like an endless walk, he stopped suddenly and pointed. "My cottage is over there." He pointed to a small house that was only a few feet away. He kept walking, and I followed behind. I knew this was probably a bad idea, but maybe, just maybe, I could get some answers about what was happening with my life. We entered the cottage, and I was blown away by the inside. From the outside, it looked small, but inside, it was like a palace hall. The sound of his shoes clicking against the marble floor made me realize that maybe he hadn't been gliding after all. Maybe he had just been walking in the forest, and his feet were finally touching the ground. But that didn't matter right now. I needed answers, and I was determined to get them from him. He sat down on a golden throne, looking like a king. His cheeks, which had been sunken before, now seemed fuller. How could he be my father? We didn't look alike at all. As though he could read my thoughts, he said, "I know you're wondering why we don't look alike. I must admit, I'm a little disappointed. People would think your mother did all the work, but Ingrid was always such a strong person." Strong person? I felt a little offended. It sounded like he was treating my mother like she was just a house for his child to grow in, and that disgusted me. My mother was more than that, she was my mother, and she was a good woman. "Certainly, I didn't mean to offend you. I tend to let my thoughts get the best of me sometimes. It's something I'm working on," he said with a big grin. "You're neither dead nor alive. You're more dead to me. Don't you think it's a bit too late to work on your character?" I said, gritting my teeth. He burst into laughter. "You're bold, I like that. It's exactly what I expected from my daughter. Power suits you, my lovely daughter." "I am not your daughter," I screamed in anger. My hands itched to strike him, but I held back. He may have been involved in my existence, but he was not my father. A real father wouldn't have deceived and destroyed a young woman's life and reputation. He clenched his fists in anger, then jumped out of the chair and marched toward me. We were so close now that there were only a few inches between us. He was tall, taller than I expected, but strangely, I could feel his breath against my temple. How was that even possible? He grabbed my hand tightly, and I struggled to break free. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I demanded. "I'm showing you the truth," he said through gritted teeth. The ballroom around us started to change, and before I knew it, we were standing in the forest. But this was not the dark, creepy forest outside the cottage. This was a real forest. What are we doing here? I asked, curious, as he let go of my hand. I watched him carefully, trying to read his face for any hint of what he was really after, but he showed no emotion. His expression was straight, almost blank. I was about to ask him the same question again, but I stopped when I saw a young girl running by, giggling. She fell to the ground, still laughing, and I was about to go over and help her when I saw a young boy slightly older than her appear. He said something that completely shocked me. "You play so much, Ingrid," he said as he helped her up. The girl's body leaned against him as he held her by the waist. She looked at him with intense eyes, like she was captivated by him, and he stared back at her with equal intensity. Ingrid, my mother's name. For a moment, she glanced in my direction before looking back at the boy. I froze. She looked just like me. Her hair was the same color as mine. This was my mother. But who was that boy? That's me, my supposed father answered. What? I said, my eyes wide in shock. He didn't say anything, just continued to watch the young couple. Everyone in the village says that. I thought you loved that about me. You said my rebellious nature intrigued you, my mother said with a playful, almost seductive tone. I love your rebellious spirit. What normal wolf girl would choose to get involved with a wizard? He teased. Crazy me, it was hard to resist your charm and good looks, Alexander Eriksson, she said, grinning before she kissed him. He held her by the neck and deepened the kiss. I turned to my supposed father. Is that your name, Alexander Eriksson? I asked. Yes, he breathed. He knew my mother. He was a wizard. Could he really be telling the truth? Was this man really my father? I had never asked my mother about him. I always thought that if she wanted me to know who he was, she would have told me. All she ever said was that he was a terrible man who had deceived and abandoned her. I finally had to ask, why did you leave my mother? Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 15. Why did you leave my mother? I asked, the words sticking in my throat. It felt like something was choking me. Was I going to cry? Was I really going to cry in front of this stranger? I couldn't believe it, but he surprised me. He burst out laughing. I stepped back, shocked, watching as my so-called father laughed like a madman. It was twisted and crazy, like he had completely lost it. Then, just as quickly as it started, he stopped. His face returned to its usual cold, emotionless look. Forgive me, my child, but your question is quite funny, at least to me. I didn't leave your mother killed me, he said, his voice cold. What? My eyes nearly popped out of my head. This had to be some kind of sick joke. He was lying, right? My mother would never do that. She could never kill a wizard, especially not one as powerful as he claimed to be. She was just a werewolf with no rank. It didn't make sense. You're lying. I won't stand here and fall for your lies and deceit. I said loudly, trying to stand firm. He needed to know that my mother's name meant something to me, and I would never believe whatever story he was trying to spin to break me. He chuckled. I see, she got to you too. She's really good at what she does, he said, like he was mocking me. Why? My mother was a good woman, but you treated her horribly. You abandoned her, knowing she was carrying your child. You knew she would be rejected by her true mate and her pack, and you let her suffer, I shouted, my voice full of anger. This stranger wasn't going to ruin my memories of my mother. She loved me, and she would have done anything to protect me. I wasn't going to let him destroy that. He grabbed my right hand and pulled me roughly toward him. I screamed, trying to free myself, but his grip was too strong. What are you doing? Let me go. Unhand me right now, you vagabond. I warned, but it was like my words didn't even reach him. He kept dragging me forward until a black door appeared out of nowhere. With a simple wave of his hand, the door opened, revealing a dark abyss behind it. As he pulled me closer, I dug my feet into the ground, trying to resist, but it was useless. He kept dragging me, and eventually, we were through the door. I screamed in despair. "You can open your eyes now," I heard him say in a stern voice, almost like a command. I didn't even realize I had closed my eyes, but when I opened them, I found myself inside an old tent. The walls were made of real animal furs, and there was a strange incense in the air, one I couldn't quite describe. Then, I saw my young parents standing before an old woman, their hands tightly clasped together. It's not easy to break the bond the moon goddess has made. Witches aren't supposed to interfere with it. We usually know our limits, the old woman said, adjusting her worn dress. Her gray hair was in several braids, and it looked unkempt. "I'm with child," my mother said, her voice filled with sadness. She sounded like she was about to cry. She really loved my father, the same man who abandoned her, and now, he was dishonoring her name. "I'm standing by my mother's side. She loved you with all her heart, but you didn't love her," I said, a frown on my face. I refused to look him in the eyes. "Watch," he gritted, his voice full of anger. I sighed but turned my focus back to the scene in front of me. The old woman responded dryly, "I know. I can feel the essence of the offspring. It's a child that shouldn't exist. She's an abomination. Your soul is tied to another, yet you choose to dirty your spirit with my kind." Her words were harsh, and it was clear she didn't like what was happening. "Don't talk to her like that," my young father shouted, banging his fist on the floor of the tent. The old woman laughed. "You can love her now, but you'll still watch her die. Their kind doesn't have our blessings," she said after her laughter died down. "That's not a blessing. I'd rather die if it means we can spend the rest of our days together," my young father said. When I heard this, I snapped my head toward the man standing next to me. I couldn't believe it. There was a softness in his eyes now. He really did care for my mother. Why would my mother lie to me? What happened between them? "You don't want your gift. You want to lose your essence and grow old and die." "I did it once, and I regret it every day," the old woman said. Now I understood. That explained why she looked so old. I had never met an aged witch or wizard before. They all seemed to stay frozen in time, never looking older than 40. "I won't regret it. This is the right choice," my young father said boldly. "My love, are you sure?" my young mother asked, worry in her voice. He kissed her, then said, "Absolutely." "I see the choice has been made," the old woman said. "Yes," my young father responded. The old woman stood and walked toward him, placing her hand on his temple. The room started to shake, and my father's body began to convulse. His eyes rolled back in his head, and he screamed loudly before collapsing with a thud. "It is done," the old woman said. My mother rushed over to his body, holding him tightly. "Don't worry. He will wake up in time," she reassured him, pulling a bottle with purple liquid out of her hands. "What is that?" my mother asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. "It's his essence. You see, this spell can't be performed by just any witch. I'm the only one in the coven who can do it because I created the spell. I practiced it on myself for love," the old woman said, laughing at the end. "It's funny what we'll do for love. My love still abandoned me after my sacrifice. Now I'll get my essence back." "What do you mean?" my mother asked, confused. The old woman chuckled. "My body can take in his essence, and my youth will be restored." "Oh," my mother gasped. "I'll be right back. We still need to sever the bond between you and your true mate," the old woman said, setting the bottle down on the table and walking out of the tent. My mother picked up the bottle, staring at the liquid inside. Then, to my shock, she opened it and drank the entire bottle. Her eyes glowed with purple light, and her body trembled. She let out a loud growl, like her wolf was fighting for its life. Then, Her body went still. A smirk spread across her face, and she pulled out a knife from her dress. Without hesitation, she drove the knife into my father's chest, and I froze. "What have you done?" the old woman gasped, rushing back into the room. She stared in disbelief as my mother stood up from the floor, smiling widely. My mother killed my father. That thought screamed in my mind, and my world began to spin. Everything felt like it was crumbling, and the only thing I could do in that moment was scream. Chapter 16. The image of my mother stabbing my father disappeared instantly, and we were back in the hall. My father returned to his throne, sitting as though nothing had happened. "It is quite heartbreaking, isn't it?" he said plainly. I tried to calm myself, though my heart ached. The betrayal cut so deeply that it felt like a nightmare, like a lie. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Why would my mother do this? It didn't make sense. This had to be a lie. "This is a lie," I said firmly, my voice filled with conviction. I had to defend her name. My mother could never deceive me like this. She loved me too much to lie about my father. This must be a trick created by this invader in front of me. "Is it?" he sneered, his face twisting into a frown. "You want it to be a lie, so you convince yourself that it is," he added, laughing. My mother wasn't a witch, I would have known that, I argued. "She wasn't, not at that time," he replied, standing up from his throne. "You see, your mother took my essence, but what she didn't know was that, since she was a werewolf, she wouldn't be able to use my powers until she dies. She didn't realize it at the time, or maybe she would have done things differently. My coven is different from others. My family's essence is stronger, and that's what drew your mother to me. Perhaps I revealed more than I should have. I was blinded by love. I should have known better. Werewolves are tricky creatures, always striving for dominance." "What do you mean by, until she dies?" I was completely confused. It didn't make sense to me. Your mother came back as a witch when she died as a werewolf. But for a while, she was weak. She didn't take all of my essence. That essence was shared, and that's where you come in. You got the greater share. Magic is drawn to pure souls, and there's no purer soul than an innocent child's, he revealed. I staggered back, my legs going weak. I let out a nervous laugh, trying to understand what he had just said. This was a sick joke. It had to be. "I wish this was a joke," he said, as though reading my thoughts. "You have my essence in you, that's why I was able to reach you," he added. "There's no proof of that. This could all be an evil plot, and you might not even be my father," I said, standing my ground. I refused to let myself be manipulated by this man, someone I knew nothing about. Why didn't he show up earlier when I first entered this world, when my powers were drained, and those terrible creatures attacked me? "Of course," he replied simply. He stood up and walked over to me. Before I knew it, he grabbed my arm, sliced my skin, and blood began to flow. He did the same to himself. I recognized the magic. Before science, witches used this to confirm parentage. A white glow meant family, while a red glow proved there was no relationship. I can assure you this is real. This is not the physical realm, but the mark will stay on your arm when you wake up, and it will disappear after a while as proof, he said, starting to chant spells. I was eager to see what would happen. It felt like forever as I watched him chant, until finally, he stopped. In a flash, a white glow appeared, proof that he was telling the truth. I sat on the floor, leaning against one of the pillars in the hall, feeling completely defeated. My father had returned to his throne, watching me with a focused gaze. I wanted answers, but these weren't the answers I was expecting. Instead, they raised even more questions. It shattered all the good memories I had of my mother. It ruined everything I had ever known. My father hadn't abandoned us like I was led to believe. He wasn't the evil man my mother had painted him to be. Or maybe, to her, he had been evil. Maybe she hated the fact that she couldn't use his powers, so she chose to despise him. And then she passed that hatred on to me. I could sit here and cry about the betrayal my mother caused, but I had more important things to figure out. I was still tied to this world, even though Malric and his pack of wolves were destroyed. I knew it had nothing to do with them, so why me? I stood up, summoning what little strength I had left. I need answers, I said firmly. It hurt that we couldn't have met under different circumstances. Maybe I would have hugged him and told him how much I missed him. But I couldn't do that. This man might be my father, but I knew nothing about him. I'll help as best as I can, he responded. Why am I here? Why me? And why this world? I asked. He sighed. Your mother brought you here, he admitted. She wants to take the remaining essence, and she has some witches working with her. That's how she's been able to take control of this realm. By bringing you here, it's much easier to drain your essence than in the physical world. You've seen those creatures with your own eyes. I'm sure you've witnessed what they can do. I stumbled backward at his revelation. Is she here right now? I stuttered, unable to control my fear. No, she isn't, he said. A wizard of hers just passed away. His name was Malric. The Black Coven will mourn his soul. He was like you, a half-blood. It's a tragedy that he became a pawn in her sick game. He paused before adding, but that's not the main issue here, my child. If your mother gets your essence, you will die. That statement completely turned my world upside down. What? My mother is trying to kill me? I whispered, unable to believe it. Yes, if she doesn't, she will die, and this time, it will be forever, he explained. But why would the witches help her? She was a werewolf. Witches don't willingly help werewolves, I asked, trying to make sense of it. She managed to convince them with a false story, the same one she told you. She sought the help of the Black Coven. They are known for avenging witches and wizards they believe were wrongfully killed. She made them believe that the werewolves killed me and cast her out when she was pregnant with you. Before I died, I had willingly given her my essence. She wants revenge on the werewolves and also to drain the remaining essence from you. She's stronger now, thanks to them, but it's only temporary. She's using borrowed power, he explained. I felt utterly shocked, sick to my stomach. A wave of disgust swept over me. My mother, the woman I had once cherished, was now trying to take my life. How do you know all this? Maybe you're wrong. My mother can't do that. How can you be sure? I know this because a part of me is still inside her, he said, his voice soft. And that's how I know she's coming this very minute. I froze completely at his words. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 17. The door to the hall slammed open, and there she was, my mother, the one who was supposed to have disappeared forever. She walked into the hall, dressed in a dark cloak with the hood down. It had been years since I last saw her. I could still remember the day she passed away so clearly. I watched as her fragile eyes closed and her wrinkled hand dropped, losing its life. She lay on my lap as I cried for her death, but here she was, alive and youthful, just like when she took my father's essence. I wanted to run to her, wrap her in my arms, and tell her how much I missed her, how much I struggled after she left this world, how much I prayed for her spirit's peace and happiness in the afterlife. But I was the fool. She had been alive all along. She walked up to me and stared at me directly in the face. I was so stunned, I couldn't move. You look as beautiful as ever, my dear child, she smiled at me. Even though her face was stunning and flawless, all I could see was the deceit and darkness in her eyes. The fact that we looked so much alike only made me angrier. How was this my mother? How was this the same woman who had raised me? How was this the same woman I would have given everything for? It felt pathetic, thinking back to the time when I had begged the moon goddess to save her. You won't greet your mother? We haven't seen each other in almost 4 centuries. I've missed you so much, she added. The words made me feel sick. Though this wasn't the physical world, I could still feel everything just as if it were. You are really alive and young, I managed to say. Her face twisted into a wide, satisfied grin. Young, oh, it feels so good to be young again, she said, her expression still disturbing. She looked like she had lost her mind, or was I judging too quickly? Was my view of her clouded by my father's influence? I cried for you when you passed. I prayed for your spirit. I asked the moon goddess to give you peace because I thought you had suffered because of my father's mistake. Why? She interrupted me with a chuckle, which turned into a maniacal laugh. She laughed for a long time, like a crazed woman. Then, without warning, she stopped, and her face turned cold again. I never knew you were so pathetic, she sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. You begged the moon goddess for my happiness. You really are a good daughter, she mocked. But I guess you're not a good mother, I snapped, cutting her off. She seemed taken aback for a moment, but then her expression returned to the same cruel look she had before. I took care of you, didn't I? She said, trying to stroke my arm. I pushed her hand away from me, and she frowned, clearly irritated. She turned to my father, still frowning. I see you've told her everything, she said, her voice full of venom. She deserves to know what kind of monster you are, my father spat at her. Her face twisted into a sadistic smile for a moment, but then she wiped it off and waved her hand. Immediately, my father was yanked from across the room, and she gripped him by the neck, squeezing whatever life was left in him. Oh, how nice it would be to kill you again, she spat. My heart shattered. My mother was really capable of this. She truly killed my father. Well, at least I can enjoy watching you suffer, she added, tightening her grip. My father grunted in pain. Let him go. Let him go. I shouted, tears in my eyes. It hurt me to watch him suffer. He was the good one. He was a victim of my mother's cruelty. But why? Why did you do this? What did my father ever do to you except love you? I asked, my voice full of pain. She chuckled. You know, dear child, this world is for the strong, not the weak. I watched how my parents were treated because they had no power, and I couldn't let myself endure that kind of pain. I admit, there was a time when I really did feel something for you, Alexander. But my hunger for power was stronger than anything I felt for you. Though, there were things that happened that I never expected, like getting bonded to the Alpha's son. You see, I was always meant to have power, but my impatience got the best of me. Maybe I would have been happy if I had just waited, followed the course of things. But well, there's always a price for everything in life. You told me you were raped. I yelled in anger, and she tightened her grip on my father's neck again. I didn't think it would be good to tell my child that her father was dead and I killed him. That would have been too much for you, she said coldly. But I do love you, in my own way. And yet you tried to kill me, I spat. Like I said, there's a price for everything. You've lived for over 5 centuries. That's just greed, my dear. It doesn't change the fact that I love you, and I always will, she answered, and before I could say anything back, she squeezed my father's neck even tighter. I barely heard him whisper, "Don't give up easily," before he faded away and was gone. Alexander was a good man, she smirked, turning her attention back to me. She grabbed me by the neck, and before I could react, her grip was already tightening. I struggled to breathe, my lungs feeling crushed. I kicked and fought, but it felt like life was draining out of me. She was so strong, much stronger than I had ever imagined. I never thought I would meet my mother in these circumstances. She stared at me without any emotion in her eyes. I gathered every last bit of strength and pushed her away. She flew across the room, but landed gracefully, unfazed. I gasped for air, struggling to remember this wasn't the physical realm, yet I could feel everything just like I would in the real world. I see you still have some fight in you, she chuckled. I would love to stay and continue this dance with you, my dear daughter, but I don't have the time. Me neither. I snapped, raising my hands to use my magic. But it was useless. She burst into laughter. I control this world, my sweet child, she smirked. With a wave of her hand, those horrible creatures appeared, rushing toward me violently. Then, the draining started. I felt my powers being sucked out of me. My mother came closer, smiling widely. I wish things could have gone differently, my dear child, she said, caressing my cheek. She kissed my temple gently. Sleep now, my child, she whispered, and that was the last thing I heard before everything went black. Chapter 18. I was surrounded by a white, empty space. It felt like I was trapped in a void, with no sense of time or place. At least it wasn't dark. Was this what death felt like? Was this the afterlife? This strange nothingness. My mother had truly won, and I had failed miserably. I couldn't even put up a decent fight. The once feared werewolf priestess, now reduced to nothing. And then, a light, brighter than anything I had ever seen, filled the space, blinding me completely. I tried covering my eyes with my hands, but it didn't help. The light was overwhelming, choking almost. I squeezed my eyes shut as tightly as I could, trying to endure the brightness. Then, a soft voice spoke. You can open your eyes now. The voice was sweet, like a lullaby, calming and gentle. I slowly opened my eyes, and when I did, the world around me was nothing like what I had expected. It was a magical landscape. There were beautiful beings flying through the sky, and everything around me was vibrant with color. Then, I saw her. The woman smiling at me. My breath caught in my throat. She wore a flowing silvery white dress, and her white hair was decorated with flowers and silver jewelry. She was beyond beautiful, so beautiful that any man would fall at her feet, and maybe even some women would die from jealousy. We finally meet, she said, her voice as soft and melodic as ever. I blinked, trying to understand her words. Do I know you? Where am I? I asked quietly. You've known me your entire life. You've served me well, she smiled. My eyes widened at her words. The moon goddess? I asked, completely astonished. She nodded, confirming my question. Yes, child, she smiled warmly. You are in the abyss. An abyss I created for you. You are dying. I thought you would look a bit different, I muttered under my breath, but I knew she heard me. I thought I was already dead. You would have been, if not for Kael, your mate, she revealed. My eyes widened at the mention of his name. But I thought my kind wasn't supposed to have a mate. I thought my mother must have confused me about it, I said, still trying to understand it all. Kael was indeed my mate. Those words kept repeating in my mind. Your kind is not meant to have a mate, but I bent the rules for you because you are different. You've served me well, and the bond you share is the first of its kind. It glows blue. I know you sought answers before, but I couldn't give them to you until you discovered the truth. There's a time for everything, and now is the time, she explained. Your mother will wage war on the werewolves, and many of my people will perish at her hands. What do I do? I asked urgently. There's not much you can do. You've lost the essence that was inside you, but that essence was never truly yours, she said calmly. I know, I muttered quietly. The reminder of how I had carried a part of my father within me for so long, but had despised him for it, stung. I remembered his last words to me, don't give up easily. Don't be discouraged, Seraphina. You've been using your father's essence all this time, but that doesn't mean you don't have your own power. Your true essence has been inside you for over 500 years. It's grown far stronger than you can imagine. It will be difficult, though, maybe even impossible, for you to use it, she said. How do I learn to use my power? I asked, desperate for an answer. She smiled softly. You'll have to figure that out on your own, my dear. But now, I can help you return to your body. Your body is weak and damaged, so it will take time for you to awaken. Be prepared, be strong, Seraphina. War is coming. She waved her hand, and the atmosphere around us began to change. Wait. 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 I cried out, but she was gone, and I was back in the void. This time, it was dark, not pitch black, but like the night sky. I floated weightlessly, feeling light and peaceful. I closed my eyes. What's wrong with her? I heard a voice ask, filled with worry. It was Kael. His voice was thick with emotion, like he was about to cry, and my heart broke. I couldn't reach out to him. He was my mate, my other half. He believed in me before I did, before I had the confirmation. He believed in me even when I doubted myself. I'm trying everything I can, Kael. It's hard to feel any life in her, Tamara's voice echoed in the nothingness. I fear she's dying, she added sadly. No. She's not dying. She can't die. She's my mate. Kael shouted, his voice filled with anguish. His pain pierced through me, and I didn't even realize I was crying until I saw the tears floating upwards. Mistress will be fine, Kael. She's a strong woman, Leora's voice assured him, and then the nothingness swallowed the sound again. I hope you're fighting, Seraphina, Kael's voice came again. I smiled at his words, if only he knew I was in a sleep-like state. I need to take you on a real date. I don't think you've had one in the 500 years you've been in this world. Isn't that funny? You're older than my grandparents, yet you look younger than I do. So beautiful, and so fierce, he added, chuckling lightly. Who would have thought it would take you being in this state for you to finally listen to me and stop arguing about us not being true mates, he said. I could almost picture the smile on his face as he said those words. Kael was such a good man, and a good mate. I, on the other hand, felt unworthy of him. He was too good for me. Why did he have to go through all of this just because he was fated to be with me? I was grateful to the moon goddess for giving me him, but I also felt like I was a burden to Kael. I felt like I was a burden to him. Then, a sharp pain pierced through my chest, as if hundreds of bodies were lying on my heart, and I began to tremble. No. I heard Kael scream desperately, and many voices echoed in the background. Then, the excruciating pain hit again. I screamed, my teeth grinding together. It felt like my heart was being torn apart, and then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Seraphina. Seraphina. Kael's voice called out, sounding like he was crying. Then, my eyes shot open, and I gasped for air. Kael stared at me, his eyes wide with shock. You're alive, he breathed. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 19. Kael stared at me, his eyes wide with shock. You're alive, he breathed. Before I could say anything, he quickly pressed his lips against mine. My eyes widened, and a spark exploded inside me. The connection between us was so intense, it was beyond words. It felt both electrifying and peaceful, calm yet powerful. As I subconsciously parted my lips, he took it as a sign to deepen the kiss. His hands gently held the back of my neck, and his fingers touched the nape of my neck. That's when I felt the bond between us intensify tenfold. It was then that I realized, I had been marked. When Kael finally pulled away and looked straight at me, I felt completely frozen. I could hear him calling my name, but I couldn't answer. My mind was still trying to process everything. I felt dizzy, like the world was spinning. My eyelids became heavy, and my body grew weak. It must have been the rush from the bond. Kael stared at me with worry in his eyes, knowing that I was about to pass out. But just before I lost consciousness, I managed to weakly mutter, I'm fine, I'm just tired. And then, everything went black. The sound of a heart monitor was the first thing I heard when I came to. I felt stronger than I had before, and all the memories of what had happened flooded my mind. My cheeks burned with embarrassment. I had acted like a lovesick teenager. I scanned the room, taking in the surroundings. It looked like a typical hospital room. I had never been the one lying in a bed before. I was usually the one helping others who were in that position. Life had changed so quickly. When my eyes landed on Kael, I saw him lying on a small couch, looking uncomfortable. His big frame didn't quite fit, and I couldn't help but smile at the sight of him. He stirred in his sleep, and when his eyes opened, they were wide and childlike. "Hey," he mumbled groggily, wiping the sleep from his eyes. He stood up and walked over to me, trying to shake off the drowsiness. "Hey," I replied when he reached my side. He was staring at me with an intensity one had never seen before. "How are you feeling now?" he asked. "I feel good," I answered, but his eyes were still searching me, looking for any hint of a lie. "I'm fine. I don't think I'll collapse again," I added, trying to reassure him. He sighed in relief. "Okay," he nodded curtly. "I've been marked," I said quietly. His eyes widened slightly, like he had been caught in a crime. I. He stammered before letting out a deep breath. "I had to. You were dying, and it was the only thing I could think of. I'm sorry for doing it without your consent." "I understand," I replied simply. Kael marking me had saved my life. I no longer carried my father's essence, and in a way, that made me feel different. It was like losing a part of myself. A father I had been taught to hate had been living inside me all this time, and I hadn't even known it. "What happened?" Kael asked, his voice filled with concern. "You suddenly collapsed. I thought everything would be over when we defeated Malric and his plague wolves, but I was wrong. You were unconscious for a week, and your condition kept getting worse every day until you died." He choked on those last words, and my heart broke. It was in that moment, when I fell into the slumber, that I realized the painful truth, that Kael was my mate, and the moon goddess had chosen to favor me. Kael had believed in that bond long before I did, and now I finally accepted it. "You really are my mate," I said, stating the truth aloud. "It seems so." "Are you happy?" he asked, his gaze intense as he waited for my answer. I wasn't sure how to respond. I was still stunned that I had a mate, and even more so that my mate was such a good man. But even still, I felt undeserving of him. I breathed. My feelings were all over the place, but despite everything, I was happy. For the first time in a long while, I had something worth living for. Kael smiled brightly, but before he could say anything more, Leora burst into the room, followed closely by Celine. "Mistress!" Leora exclaimed with excitement, rushing over to me and hugging me tightly. I winced at the pressure, and she quickly pulled back. "Are you hurt, mistress?" she asked, her concern evident. "I'm just a bit sore," I replied. "You look like you fought a war and lost," Celine joked, but her words hit me harder than I expected. I had fought a war, and I had lost. My mother had won. "My mother lives," I announced. Kael looked confused, but Celine gasped, and Leora stared at me wide-eyed. She had never met my mother, but I had often told her stories of how she would have been happy to meet her, how she would have taken better care of her. It hurt to realize how wrong I had been. It hurt to know that the righteous mother I had once looked up to was actually the villain. "She has taken my essence." "Well, my father's essence, which had been stored inside of me," I explained. I don't understand. How is that possible? Lady Ingrid is a werewolf. How could she take a witch's essence? And how did your father's essence end up inside of you?" Celine asked eagerly, confusion written across her face. Celine had met my mother when I was much older, and she had been the one to encourage our friendship so that I wouldn't be alone when my mother passed. How had the kind woman I once knew become so evil? It didn't make sense. "She consumed my father's essence and killed him," I whispered. "What?" Celine screamed in shock. Sitting in the fields, staring out into nature, felt different. It felt like I hadn't done this in over a century. A lot had happened in just a week. While I had struggled in that strange world, they had been fighting in the physical world to bring me back. After explaining everything to Celine and the others, I felt suffocated in the room. Kael noticed and pulled me out for a walk. I was grateful for that. He quietly led me by the hand to the forest behind the clinic. When I started feeling tired, we stopped, and I sat down on the grass, staring at everything around me. Images of the good times I spent with my mother flashed through my mind, but instead of filling me with joy, each memory made me feel broken. Kael pulled me close, holding me tightly. I didn't even realize I was crying until a tear rolled down my cheek. And then, I started crying. Kael held me close as I sobbed, soaking his shirt with my tears. But he didn't mind. He held me even tighter. The last time I cried like this was when I thought my mother had passed away. I felt like my world had been taken away, and that made me wonder if I would suffer the same fate when Kael eventually passed away. My entire existence felt cursed. "I'm here," Kael said softly, and his words hit me like a bullet to the heart. "I'll always be here," he added, as if he knew exactly what I was feeling. Maybe he could sense the turmoil inside me. "Thank you," I muttered, finally stopping my crying. I pulled away gently, but Kael's face showed that he was hurt by my actions. I didn't want to be away from him, and I wasn't rejecting him. I just didn't know how to feel or what to feel yet. But then, I did something that shocked both of us. I placed a kiss on his lips. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 20. My mother had been silent, far too silent for my comfort. 3 whole days had passed since I encountered her, and yet she hadn't made any appearance. I knew she was coming, but I had expected her to arrive by now, especially since she now had full control over my father's essence. I was still without any magic. It was as though I had never been a witch to begin with. I tried even the simplest of spells, but none of them worked. Kael was always there beside me, his constant presence, but there was a look in his eyes, one full of worry. He was afraid of what might happen to me, just as I was. I thought maybe my mother believed I was dead. After all, I should have been. The moment the essence was taken from me, it had been my source of life for as long as I could remember. War was approaching, and I feared I wouldn't be able to help, and it was a war started by my own flesh and blood. Today was the coronation of Alpha Ronan and Luna Alira. The ceremony was to be held in the palace, and Kael, Leora, Celine, and I made the journey 2 days ago. I had never been to a coronation before. I never saw the need to attend, but now there was a reason. My mother was planning to kill the current rulers, and I would be the one to bring the bad news. The palace halls were filled with alphas and representatives from many packs, all gathered to witness the event. Alpha Ronan stood tall in his royal attire, and Luna Alira stood beside him, just as strong. But I couldn't help but notice the fear in her eyes, the uncertainty of whether the struggles of her life were finally over. I wished for that to be true, but I knew it wouldn't be. It couldn't be, because I wasn't strong enough to defeat my mother. Kael held my hand tightly, as if trying to calm me down while we watched the ceremony unfold. He knew what was coming. He knew that the blood of his kind would be spilled because of greed and a thirst for power. "I give you King Ronan and Queen Alira," the high priest announced, and the entire hall erupted into applause and cheers. Then we all knelt in reverence. After the ceremony and the banquet, I stayed within the palace grounds with my friends. 2 days had passed, and now I was about to meet the king. Kael and I walked into the throne room hand in hand. Our relationship was stable for now, but there was still so much for us to discover about each other. And Kael still hadn't been marked. King Ronan looked surprised to see how close Kael and I were. Kael had once told him that I was his mate, but I had denied it back then. Now, I was finally accepting it. King Ronan, Queen Alira, I bowed, with Kael, Leora, and Celine following my lead. Celine seemed a little overwhelmed by the grandeur of it all. She had never been in a royal werewolf palace before, surrounded by so many wolves. She was only here to help me regain my magic, or rather, to learn it all over again. I had managed to move a cup a few centimeters from its original place, but I knew it would take much more than that to defeat my mother. Priestess, Ronan nodded respectfully. I'm happy to see you well. I had imagined you would be the one to crown me since you helped me save my mate. I am forever in your debt, he said. Elira smiled softly, her fingers nervously fidgeting with her dress. She would need some time to adjust to royal life. Even in her dress, her belly was noticeably rounded. It seemed she was about halfway through her term. I'm grateful for your help as well, she responded quietly. I smiled at her. It was my pleasure, and that's why I hate that I have to be the one to tell you that something evil is coming, I said softly. Elira's eyes widened, and they immediately filled with tears. The fear in her eyes was unmistakable now. She reached for her mate's hand, seeking emotional support. What do you mean? Ronan asked firmly, his alpha presence radiating through the room, like a true alpha ready to protect at any moment. War is coming, my king, and my mother will be the one to bring it. She has grievances with the werewolves, and she was the one behind Malric. I think she wants the throne, I explained. Your mother was a werewolf. How is it possible that she survived all these years? Ronan asked, clearly unconvinced by what I had just revealed. I understood his skepticism. If I hadn't witnessed my own mother trying to drain the life out of me, I would have doubted it too. She was a werewolf, but not anymore. She has become a witch, I answered. Ronan chuckled in disbelief. A werewolf turning into a witch? It had to happen in my lifetime. Priest, I need you to explain how a werewolf turns into a witch. Of course, the priest replied. After explaining the situation to the king and revealing how my once good mother had transformed into an evil being, I left the king's presence. I had to stay within the palace grounds because, if war was indeed coming, the king had asked for my help. Although I doubted I could be of any real assistance, I was willing to try. My father's final words kept echoing in my mind, don't give up easily. I was trying my best not to give up. I had never felt so powerless before, but the moon goddess had given me a sliver of hope, and I was holding on to that. As soon as I left the king's presence, I headed toward the training grounds with my companions. If I truly wanted to fight against my mother and win, I needed to continue my training. Seraphina. Are you sure about this? Celine shouted from across the field. I had told her to attack me with a strong magic. Maybe the reason my magic had been so dormant was that my essence had never been in real danger. This had to work. It had to. Kael shared a concerned look with Leora, but neither of them spoke up. Their words wouldn't stop me. Now was not the time to focus on emotions. I'm sure. I yelled back. Celine paused for a second, clearly considering whether to go through with it. But eventually, she gave a quick nod. I took my stance, waiting for her attack. If I were still my old self, I should have been able to create a shield to block her attack and even send it back at her easily. But I knew it wasn't going to be that simple this time. Celine launched her magic at me, and as expected, I couldn't block it. The force of the magic swept me off the ground, and I crashed to the ground with a loud thud. Kael and Leora started rushing toward me, but I stopped them with a wave of my hand. I stood up and took my stance once again. I'm afraid you might hurt yourself, Celine said, sounding genuinely concerned. I'm fine, I replied, my voice steady. Again. I demanded. She fired at me again, and once again, I couldn't block it. I was thrown to the ground. This time, I finally understood how pure werewolves and humans must feel when they struggle to accomplish something. Being knocked down over and over again wasn't easy. Sweat began to bead on my forehead and ran down my face and neck. I must have looked a mess, but I wasn't going to give up, even though I felt completely drained. I think we should stop, Kael suggested, his voice laced with worry. No. I shouted, a fire in my voice. We cannot stop. I refuse to let my mother win, I said, pushing myself up for the umpteenth time. Again, I added, taking my stance once more. My father's words echoed in my mind. When Celine fired at me once more, I felt it. I felt my essence inside of me, and it surged, like a burst of power. It exploded out of me in a shockwave that hit Celine with full force, throwing her onto the ground. She landed with a cough, blood spilling from her mouth. I immediately rushed to her side, pulling her into my lap. She chuckled weakly. That's the hardest I've ever been hit. You did it. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting subsequent interesting daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 21. 2 days later, news reached the palace. A pack had been attacked, and several pack members had been taken. Although King Ronan was doubtful about the connection between this attack and my mother's threats, I knew in my heart it was her doing, and this was just the beginning. Another 2 days passed, and there was another attack. More wolves were taken from their pack. The palace was thrown into chaos. Several alphas were on edge, and King Ronan was doing his best to calm everyone down. I could tell he was under a lot of pressure. It was easier to be an alpha than a king, and although Ronan was a strong alpha, I knew he was still new to the responsibility of being a king. It had only been days since his coronation. Over the past few days, I had been trying to get back to that world, but it wasn't working. Celine was helping me, but even though I had managed to control my own essence, it was still impossible. My mother had completely taken over that world, and even the Order couldn't access it, which made me worry about how powerful she had become. Celine had spoken to the Order about the Black Coven, but there was still nothing they could do. The Black Coven fully supported my mother, and even though I had told them otherwise, they wouldn't believe me. To them, I was never a real witch. I was never part of a coven. They saw me as just a werewolf. My mother, on the other hand, was the righteous one. She had torn away from her wolf nature and embraced the witches, believing she was fighting for justice in my father's name. It was all completely insane. I never thought I'd be the one to say this, but I think the witches have completely failed, Celine sighed. I thought we had the strongest witches. How is it possible that your mother was able to take control of that world with just one coven behind her? What does she even want with that world? She has already taken the essence from you. None of this makes sense. We were on the field, practicing my magic while Leora and Kael were helping around the palace grounds. Your father is still in that world, isn't he? I asked. Yes, he is, Celine answered with a frown. I'm sorry, Celine, I murmured softly. The guilt inside me gnawed at my bones. I felt partly responsible for my mother's actions. It's not your fault, Seraphina. Lady Ingrid is just deranged, she said, giving me a small smile. Can I speak with you, priestess? I heard Queen Alira's voice behind me. I immediately stood up and faced her. How can I help you? I asked. She gently rubbed her belly through her dress, a gesture of a mother protecting her unborn child. Are you sure this war is coming? I know you're a priestess, and you know these things, but is it possible that everything could be false? She asked. I could hear the tremor in her voice. It was clear she was tired of living a life full of chaos and uncertainty. I am certain, I answered plainly. There was no need to sugarcoat the painful truth. How can I help? Ronan doesn't want me involved. He thinks it will keep me safe, she said, surprising me. I never expected her to ask that. I walked closer to her. Your mate cares for you, and you should appreciate that. You've been through so much pain. I'm not sure how you can help, but stay strong, I said, placing my hands on her belly. I could feel the strength of the pup inside her. Her child would be an alpha, and he was strong. You have to be strong for your child. He's strong too. It's a boy? She asked in wonder. Yes, a strong boy, I smiled at her, and she smiled back. Thank you, she said softly. I heard you have a mate, just like Malric did. Do you think would he have had a mate like I have mine? I finished for her. I don't know. My kind was never meant to have mates, but I've been blessed by the moon goddess, I said with another soft smile. Then you should cherish that too, she said with a nod and excused herself. You should listen to her, you know. That child speaks the truth, Celine said, standing up from the ground. You have truly been blessed, Seraphina. And even though war is coming, you shouldn't miss out on the things that make you happy, she added. My mind instantly drifted to the kiss I had given Kael when I woke up. The same kiss I had been avoiding talking about with him, and Kael, for his part, had let me have my way. I had truly been blessed. Is your cheek heating up? Celine asked out of nowhere, and my eyes widened as I immediately pressed my palms to my cheeks. Of course not. I responded too quickly, causing Celine to burst into laughter. Seraphina, he's not just any man. He's your mate, and he has become your chosen, hasn't he? She grinned. I think so, I replied sheepishly. Then don't waste another second, she smiled brightly. It was a bit crazy, standing outside Kael's bedroom door in the middle of the night, knocking. But maybe it was time for me to start doing crazy things, to start doing things that would make me happy. I didn't know how many times I knocked, but when Kael finally opened the door, sleep still in his eyes and shirtless, it all felt worth it. I had truly been blessed. Seraphina, what are you doing here? Are you feeling okay? His voice was sleepy and slow, and I felt a bit guilty for disturbing him, but it was too late to back out now. I apologize for disturbing your rest, can I come in? I asked. He stepped aside, letting me into the room. My heart was racing in my chest. I had never expected to feel this way for any man in my life, but now I did. Seraphina. What's going on? Are you sure you're okay? Kael asked, his voice filled with worry as he shut the door behind him. He walked closer to me, standing right in front of me, his eyes locked on mine. I'm fine, I stuttered, making him blink in curiosity. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and when I opened them again, I kissed him. This time, it wasn't just a simple kiss. It was deep, full of emotion. Kael seemed surprised for a moment, but he quickly responded, and soon the kiss turned into something more passionate. He lifted me up from the ground like I was a child, carrying me to the bed. When my back hit the soft mattress, we broke the kiss. What's going on? What are we doing? He asked, a mix of confusion and excitement in his voice. I chuckled softly. I want you, I whispered. Are you sure? I nodded. I'm sure. Okay. I want you to mark me first, he said, surprising me. Are you sure? I asked, my turn to be uncertain. I knew he had marked me without my permission before, but that had been to save me. Now, I wanted him to have a choice. If he marked me and we mated, our bond would be sealed forever. Definitely, he breathed. Chapter 22. The grass was the most vibrant green the first had ever seen. The field stretched endlessly before me, and wild flowers swayed in the breeze. The earthy scent mixed with the fresh aroma of recently cut grass. The sun shone brightly above, yet I could feel no heat, everything was perfect. And there he was, lying beside me, his smile glowing in the soft, heavenly light. I gently brushed my fingers against his cheek, feeling his chuckles beneath my touch. You look at me like I'm some kind of god, he said, his voice smooth like honey, filling me with a sudden sense of peace. I smiled in response. Maybe you are, I teased. He laughed loudly, the sound vibrating through his chest, and strangely, it felt like time slowed down. I could hear every second stretching out, and it was beautiful. You've lived for 500 years, and I'm barely even 30, he pointed out as he sat up. I followed suit. You hurt me. I fake winced. You don't have to remind me that I'm an old woman. He chuckled and placed a soft kiss on my lips. You are a beautiful old woman, and you are mine. I smiled and stood up, pulling him to his feet. Come on, let's see how well you can race this old lady, I teased. Just as the words left my lips, I took off running. That's cheating. I heard him shout, and I laughed as I dashed through the field and into the woods. I felt a gust of air beside me, and soon Kael overtook me. But I wasn't ready to give up just yet. I pushed myself harder, but Kael was incredibly fast, maybe too fast. I couldn't keep up, and after giving it my all, I stopped. Okay. Okay. Fine, you win. I called out, panting for air. But there was no response from Kael. Had he not stopped? Kael. Kael. I shouted, waiting for an answer. After a few seconds, I heard him say, I'm coming back. Looks like I won. I breathed a sigh of relief, but my relief was short-lived. I waited, but he was nowhere to be seen. Kael. Kael. I called out again, now feeling more desperate. I walked deeper into the woods, calling his name, but still, there was no answer. My breath grew faster, my fingers trembling. Something was terribly wrong. I felt completely exhausted and frustrated when I heard a rustling in the leaves nearby. Hey! Who's there? I asked, but no one replied. The rustling continued. Kael, this isn't funny. I'm too old for games, I added, trying to keep my voice steady. You're never too old for me, a familiar voice responded from behind me. I turned around, and there she was, my mother. What are you doing here? What have you done with Kael? I demanded, already taking a defensive stance. Calm down, child. I mean you no harm, at least not anymore, she said, her voice soothing. I'm grateful that you survived. Maybe things are finally working in my favor. It would have been devastating for a mother to bury her own child, she smiled brightly, like any mother would, but all I could see behind her smile was evil and deceit. Silence. I will not ask you again, what have you done with Kael? I shouted. Nothing, dear. Simply nothing. Your little wolf should be fine wherever he is, she said with that same eerie smile. But how did you survive, though? You should be dead. Like you wanted, I spat, disgusted. My mind was still focused on Kael. He had been here, just moments ago. My mother was clearly lying, she must have done something to him. As I said before, no mother wishes to bury her offspring, she said coldly. I'm truly sorry for trying to kill you in the past, but desperate times call for desperate measures. You were willing to sacrifice your own child for your greed. I yelled. She chuckled. Greed? Greed? You talk as if everyone isn't greedy, my dear child. Everyone always wants something they can't have. But I'm the only one brave enough to take it, rather than sit and moan about it like a coward. I'm not greedy like you. I'll never be, I responded firmly. That's what you think, she said, a dark smile tugging at her lips. I've watched you for a long time. I've seen how you begged the moon goddess for a mate. It was pathetic to watch, really. You wet the ground with your tears, desperate for the other half of your soul. What makes you think your soul isn't complete as it is? But no, you wanted more, because you envied others, too weak to take what you really wanted. And with great pride, I can say you didn't get that trait from me. Your father was the weak one. No, he wasn't weak, I shouted, feeling a surge of anger. He simply loved you, and you betrayed his love, all for power. You act like I'm incapable of love, my dear, she said softly. But I did love you. I nurtured you all those years, even though you carried inside you what I wanted. I still loved you. I scoffed. You call that love? You only tolerated me because you couldn't get what I had inside me. You didn't love me. You wanted my power. And you're right, she said, her voice cold. I didn't have the power to take that essence from you, so I gave up. It was the first time in my life that I had ever chosen to give up on something. But when I died and this world brought me back, I finally understood my purpose. I realized that it was my power to take. I should never have given up. You're a monster. I yelled, feeling deep pain in my chest. Hearing those words come out of my mother's mouth hurt more than I could explain. It was as if the woman I once knew wasn't the one standing in front of me anymore. It felt like someone else had taken over her body, like her soul had completely changed. I am not a monster, dear. I am your mother. And even though I have been weak, I've watched you for years. I stopped you when you wanted to end your life so many times. Even the universe has worked in my favor, understanding the tears of a mother who had to give up her child, she said, her voice calm. I stood frozen, staring at her in disbelief. You've completely lost your mind, I replied, my voice shaky with disbelief. Perhaps, she said softly. But Seraphina, you are my child, and I would prefer you join me rather than fight against me. I want us to be together. We were always meant to be together. I want you to fight by my side and share this glory with me. Never. I screamed. Without hesitation, I lunged at her. But as soon as I thought I had her, she faded out of my grasp. I know you'll come to your senses soon, and you'll choose to do the right thing, to fight by my side and conquer this world together, her voice echoed from behind me. I whipped around to face her. I will never join you. I spat, running after her, ready to attack. You will, she smirked, and with that, she vanished. I screamed out in frustration. My heart raced, and I looked around, but she was gone. Suddenly, I felt a hand on my side, and when I turned, it was Kael. But everything around us had changed. We weren't in the woods anymore. We were in the bedroom. It had all been a dream. A bad dream. Are you okay, Seraphina? Kael asked with concern. You were screaming in your sleep. I blinked, still trying to shake off the dream. I'm fine, I whispered, barely able to speak. It had felt so real, so intense. Kael had been with me in that dream, but now, he was right here. I pulled him into a tight embrace, my heart still pounding from the nightmare. Hey, it's okay. I'm here, he said, running his hand gently over my bare back. It was only then I realized I was naked. The events of the night before rushed into my mind like a speeding train. Was it a bad dream? Or was it that world again? He asked softly. A bad dream, I muttered, still shaken. Kael pulled away from the hug, and I immediately felt self-conscious. I instinctively covered my exposed chest with my hands. He chuckled. I guess you're fine now, since you're worried about that. Oh, I'm in your room, I said sheepishly. I wasn't sure why I said that, but everything that had happened the night before was replaying in my mind, overshadowing the nightmare I had just woken up from. I didn't know how to express it. Yeah, you remember what happened last night, don't you? Kael asked, sounding a little worried and almost panicked. Yes, of course, I replied quickly, trying to reassure him. He let out a relieved sigh. Did I hurt you? He asked softly, his gaze dropping to the sheets. I followed his eyes and saw that the sheets were stained with blood. I immediately knew what he was referring to. I've never been touched, I said, finishing his thought. You've lived for that long and never. I don't think I could ever do that, he blurted out, then quickly slapped his mouth shut, clearly not meaning to say that. It's okay if you've been with other women. I don't blame you, I said, trying to ease his nerves. He smiled weakly. Thank you for this gift and honor, he said, pressing a kiss to my temple. I immediately felt a sense of calm wash over me. His lips lingered there for a moment before he pulled away as a knock sounded at the door. Kael sighed in frustration before getting up. His back was to me as he moved away, and I couldn't help but stare at his body. A wave of desire hit me, and I could tell he felt it too when he paused for a brief second, like he was considering turning around to face me. But he didn't. The knock on the door came again, and he grabbed a shirt from the floor before walking to the door and opening it just a crack. Kael, have you seen the priestess? A deep voice asked. There's been another attack. It was the pack near the palace. We fear she's been taken. She's fine, Kael responded. So you know where she is? She's not in her room, and her handmaiden can't find her anywhere, the man pressed. She's fine, Sean, Kael breathed. There was a pause. Oh, the man said, and it was then I realized that the man had figured out I was with Kael. For the first time in my life, I felt embarrassed. It wasn't because I was with Kael, it was because I felt like I had been caught in an awkward situation with my lover. The door closed with a soft thud. There's been another attack, Kael said as he walked back to the bed. I heard, I replied, my voice small, like a teenager caught in a lie. Your maid is worried. She thinks you've been abducted, he added. I heard that too, I muttered. He chuckled softly. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting subsequent interesting daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 23. This is unbelievable. This is the third attack in a single week, yet nothing has been done. Instead, we're arguing about a werewolf turning into a witch. Councilman Bailey shouted, slamming his hand onto the table in front of him. The entire council room erupted into noise. Silence, Councilman Bailey. King Ronan commanded, his tone stern. It was clear he was frustrated with Bailey's outbursts. The priestess does not lie on this matter. I'm not saying she's lying, but are we supposed to believe her stories? It's unheard of for a werewolf to become a witch. Our ancestors never spoke of such unnatural things, Bailey argued, his voice defensive. And our ancestors never encountered the likes of the priestess, either, having a mate, Ronan replied, his voice cutting through the room, causing everyone to stop. Times have changed. We should accept that reality. The entire room gasped, and murmurs filled the space. It's true. I'm Kael, and I am the maid of priestess Seraphina, Kael's voice rang out, standing firmly beside me. I was surprised and grateful that he was stepping forward to back up my truth. But it was obvious that Councilman Bailey was looking for any reason to dismiss my words. And we are supposed to believe this, too? There's no proof of it, another councilman chimed in. She might have used her powers to manipulate the bond. Councilman Bailey chuckled. My fingers twitched. A few weeks ago, I would have thought the same, questioning if Kael and I were truly bound, if it wasn't just a witch's manipulation. People often refused to believe what they couldn't see, and our bond couldn't be seen by them. They didn't understand. They seem to have forgotten we are neither fools nor children, Councilman Bailey spat, his frustration evident. Enough, Councilman Bailey, another councilman spoke sharply. He clearly had more authority than Bailey, and the tension in the room shifted. Bailey snorted, I'm just trying to reason with everyone. Our people are being attacked, but I'm sure it's not the work of a werewolf turned witch. We need to investigate properly and not waste time on these ridiculous stories. You seem to have forgotten your place, Councilman Bailey. Maybe if I had ripped your throat out when you once spoke out of turn, I wouldn't have to deal with you now, Ronan shot back, his voice cold and filled with authority. It was clear he was trying his best to keep his composure. He was a king now, and he knew it was important not to act impulsively, something I understood well. Bailey gulped nervously, my king, it's not possible that a werewolf could corrupt her soul. Like all werewolves are pure souls? Celine said, her voice rising slightly more than it should have. Every gaze in the room shifted to her, and Bailey's face twisted into a scowl. You shouldn't be here, witch, he sneered, his voice full of disgust. And you should learn to use your brain, Celine retorted sharply. Your people are in grave danger, and you're still worried about the supposed righteousness of your kind. Evil can dwell in all kinds of creatures. She fired back, her voice full of defiance. I gave Celine a look, silently urging her to remain calm, but she only frowned and fell silent. My king. Bailey whined, his voice high-pitched. Ronan sighed, his patience thinning. Take a seat, Bailey. She is here to help. With all due respect, my king, I can't sit in the same room as these vile creatures, Bailey spat. For all we know, she and her people might have planned all of this. He stopped suddenly, a cough cutting him off. Black blood erupted from his mouth, shocking everyone in the room. His eyes began to turn black and red, and low growls rumbled from his throat. The other councilman stood up, staring at him in fear as his body began to shift. The room was filled with chaos as Bailey's bones began to crack and twist in grotesque ways. The transformation was happening right in front of our eyes. Seraphina, is that, Celine started, her voice filled with concern. Yes, he's plagued, I said, my voice steady. Get away from him. This man is plagued, now. The councilman scrambled back, moving away from Bailey as he continued to change. Bailey's body was almost fully transformed now, his growls growing louder. Ronan was already standing, placing himself protectively in front of me, ready to defend his mate. Don't worry, I will handle this, I told Ronan calmly, stepping forward. I had to act fast. I moved toward the plagued wolf before he could fully complete his transformation. I placed my hand on his head, ready to dispel the magic. But it would cost him his life. There was no saving a plagued wolf. Before I could, however, Bailey threw me across the room with a force that knocked the air out of me. I hit the ground hard, wincing in pain. He growled loudly. He had fully transformed. Kael hurried over to me, his face filled with concern. Are you okay? He asked, his voice full of worry. Let us handle this, he added, clearly ready to take action. But Ronan was already prepared to pounce, and I stopped both of them. No. I have to do this, I declared firmly. If I couldn't defeat a single plagued wolf, how could I ever hope to take down my mother? This was all her doing, and I knew this plagued wolf would be stronger than the one Malric had created. The plagued wolf locked eyes with me, and it was clear what he was after. He wanted me, and anyone who tried to stop him would face a painful death. Anger surged through me as I got to my feet. I waved my hand in the air, calling upon my magic. Instantly, I gripped the plagued wolf by his throat, choking him. He growled in pain as I continued chanting. I pulled him toward me, and in the blink of an eye, I snapped his neck. His lifeless body dropped to the ground with a thud. The wolves in the room gasped, but I wasn't finished. A plagued wolf is never truly dead until the witch controlling them is either killed or the body is burned. Without hesitation, I severed his head from his body and set the body ablaze with my magic. I held on to the severed head. This was my mother's doing, and I knew she would have a message for me. I closed my eyes and began chanting more spells. After a short while, everything around me disappeared, and my mother materialized from the shadows. She was dressed in a black gown, her hair flowing down her back. Bailey was a bit too talkative, but he was easy to manipulate. The fool couldn't resist the charm of a youthful body, even though he already had a mate. Yet, he spoke of the righteousness of wolves. How pathetic, she chuckled, a cruel amusement in her voice. You need to stop this right now. This is madness, mother. I shouted, my anger rising. She laughed manically. Stop this? Stop this, you say? Oh, my dear child, this is just the beginning. She ran her fingers across my cheek, and I recoiled in disgust, unable to stand her touch. She faked a wince. You know, I still extend my hand to you. Join me, and let's take this world together. We can rule side by side. I have no desire to rule the world, I answered, my voice cold. Then you are a fool, she said, her smile dripping with malice. But I understand. Not everyone is meant for greatness. It's a shame you didn't take after me in that way. It's as if your father's genes have poisoned your blood, she sneered, her expression darkening. And you were born for this? I gritted through my teeth. Absolutely, my child. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come this far, she said with a smug grin. You are hurting people. What have you done to the missing pack members? Where are you keeping them? I demanded, my voice shaking with fury. Tsk, calm down, my child. You worry too much, she said dismissively. I simply gave them power, and they loved it. You are taking families away from each other and turning them into monsters for your own selfish desires. I shouted, my voice filled with rage. And you think my family didn't take everything from me? They threw me out when they found out I was pregnant and that the alpha's son had rejected me. They lived cowardly lives, but the moment they found out, they acted so boldly. How pathetic, she spat, her face twisted with bitterness. I am your mother, Seraphina. And believe it or not, I have sacrificed for you as well. Yes, by trying to kill me, I responded bitterly. I gave you Leora, you should be grateful, she yelled in frustration. I blinked in confusion, not understanding. What did she mean by that? How could she have given me Leora? I had found Leora myself as a child. What do you mean by that? I'm not in the mood for your games, I said, my voice cold. Neither am I, she snapped back. But it doesn't change the fact that Leora is your half-sister, and I gave her to you. In an instant, it felt like a bucket of ice-cold water had been poured over me. What? If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting subsequent interesting daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 24. What are you talking about? I'm not in the mood for your games, I said. Neither am I, but that doesn't change the fact that Leora is your half-sister, and I gave her to you, she revealed. The moment the words left her mouth, it felt like a bucket of cold water had been dumped on me. What? What? I stuttered, struggling to grasp what she had just said. My mind couldn't quite process it. The room felt suffocating, and my heart was beating loudly in my chest. I stared at my mother, looking at her face, hoping to see some sign that she was joking, but her expression remained serious. You're telling me that Leora is my half-sister? I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. So you see, Seraphina, I'm not so wicked after all, am I? She said, almost as if she were pleased with herself. I don't believe you. I found her, she was just a child crying in the middle of her dead parents. I won't listen to any more of your lies and deceit, I replied firmly. This had to be some twisted game she was playing. Was she trying to manipulate me by using Leora? What if I was the one who placed her there, in the midst of those dead bodies, and made you find her? You know, I've been watching for a long time. It was easy to plan the whole thing, she said, her smile widening. That's a bloody lie. I shouted, my anger flaring up, but she didn't lose that eerie smile. Did you kill those people? Did you kill Leora's parents? Of course I didn't. How could I kill her parents when I'm her mother? But, yes, I did kill her father. Funny, isn't it? How similar your stories are. I killed yours, and I killed hers. The difference is, her father deserved it, while maybe yours didn't, she said coldly. You are evil. I spat at her in disgust. Antonio, Leora's father, was just as terrible a man, my dear child. You see, I almost gave everything up for him. I really did fall in love with him, and for a while, I even considered abandoning my plans to get my powers back and coming after you. But Antonio ruined everything, she said, her voice almost wistful. What did he do? I asked urgently, cutting her off. Oh, darling, you didn't need to interrupt me. I've got all the time in the world to tell you everything, she smirked. About 24 or 25 years ago, I met Antonio, badly hurt, in no-wolf territory. He'd been attacked by rogue wolves, and because of the kindness in my heart, I decided to help him. I took him back to my tent, tended to his wounds, and when he woke up, he was shocked to see me. He became attracted to me. There's something about my face that seems to drive a few of these men crazy. Still, he was quite handsome. As my mother went on with her twisted tale, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of disgust and curiosity. Each word she spoke seemed to pull me deeper into the dark secrets of my past. He was attracted to you? I repeated, my voice full of disbelief. It was hard to imagine that my mother, the woman standing before me, had managed to deceive yet another man. Oh, yes, she replied, a smug smile playing on her lips. Antonio was drawn to me like a moth to a flame. But little did he know, the fire that burned inside me was far stronger than anything he could have imagined. Her words sent a shiver down my spine. "What happened after you nursed him back to health?" I asked, my voice filled with both fear and an odd desire to know more. She chuckled softly, her laugh tinged with bitterness. "We had our moments, Seraphina. He even took me to his pack, and we were actually planning to go through with a mating ceremony. So, you see, my dear, I really was giving this world a chance. I was giving these people a chance." "Then what happened, since you claimed to have fallen in love with him?" I asked. "Antonio ruined everything. You see, he lost his mates many years before we met, and he told me that I was a blessing from the goddess. I lied and said I was also mateless. My mate had died in a battle with the rogues. But, if I think about it, I wasn't completely lying. I don't think my first mate would have lasted all these centuries. His bones would have turned to dust by now," she said, her voice filled with both anger and satisfaction. A week before the planned mating ceremony, a young woman came to the pack, seeking refuge. Antonio was drawn to her like a mate would be, and he realized she was the one the goddess had given him. She was his blessing, and I was nothing but trash to him. He tried to talk to me, asking me to quietly let him go. She chuckled. "What a fool." He thought I was the fool, so I ripped his heart out while I caressed my belly. But I did him one last favor as he breathed his last. I told him I was carrying his child, and that he should rest well in peace. She finished with a smile on her face. "How could you?" I screamed in disbelief. "Oh, my dear, I took matters into my own hands. I wouldn't sit around and watch the goddess play her little games," she said, her eyes flashing with fierce determination. "Antonio played with fire, and I made sure he learned the consequences of his actions, the pain and disappointment he caused me. In the end, I made sure he paid for his sins." Her words lingered in the air, heavy with their truth. The man who had fathered Leora, my supposed half-sister, was not only dead but had met a gruesome end at my mother's hands. This felt like a nightmare come true. Looking at the woman standing in front of me, I realized that she was no longer the mother I knew. The woman I had once loved and trusted was gone, replaced by someone else, someone consumed by her own ambitions and hunger for power. I left the pack as soon as I killed Antonio, and that was when I realized that a quiet, simple life was never meant for me, she continued. I was destined for greater things than just being a mate to an ungrateful wolf. She paused, her eyes gleaming with dark satisfaction. "At first, I didn't think about giving up Leora, but it was pathetic watching you stay alone. The universe seemed to be working in my favor. I came across a group of wolves fighting outside the pack grounds, the same path you took every day to get your herbs. I decided to speed up the fight and kill them, then I carefully placed Leora among them. I erased her memory of me with the little magic I could muster and continued on my way. And, as you know, the rest is history. Does Leora know? Does she know you are her mother? Does she know you killed her father just because you couldn't have him for yourself?" I asked urgently. All this time, Leora had been with me, serving me like I was her master. Despite my own desires, if she knew everything, why had she stayed quiet? Why hadn't she told me? "She knows now," my mother revealed, and my heart shattered. "While you slept, or rather, while you were almost dying, I took the time to visit her. I assure you, it wasn't easy convincing her that I was her mother. She was quick to warn me to stay away from you, so eager to defend you from me. I found a way to leverage that. You see, Leora found her mate, a young boy who works in the castle. In order for her to come with me, I took him. It wasn't hard for her to come with me after that. Don't worry, Seraphina. I'll take good care of her. When you finally choose to join me, we'll have a beautiful reunion. But for now, farewell." With that, she vanished, and I found myself back in the council room. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting subsequent interesting daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 25. She knows now, my mother said, and my heart shattered. While you slept like a princess, or rather, when you were almost dying, I took my time to visit her. I assure you, it wasn't easy convincing her that I was her mother. She was so quick to warn me to stay away from you, so eager to defend you. So, I found a way to make her come with me. You see, Leora has found her mate, a young boy who works in the castle. To get her to come with me, I took him. It wasn't hard for her to follow me after that. Don't worry, Seraphina. I will take good care of her, and when you finally choose to join me, we'll have a beautiful reunion. But for now, farewell. And with that, she disappeared, leaving me alone as I found myself back in the council room. Seraphina, what happened? Celine asked, noticing the shock on my face. The whole room had their eyes on me. I stood up straighter, dropped the head of the plagued wolf to the ground, and set it ablaze with my magic. It was my mother, I said, though we both already knew that. My mind was still swirling from the revelation. Leora was really my sister, and she had probably been taken by my mother. Where is Leora? I asked quickly. I knew she couldn't be in the hall since she had said she was running errands, but this wasn't like her. I should have insisted that she join me. Now, she was gone, and I feared she was at the mercy of my mother. She should be in her room or somewhere in the castle helping out, I suppose. What's going on? Celine asked, her tone now full of concern. She's not. My mother has taken her, I said through clenched teeth. Listen. War is coming. The war is here. My mother is coming, whether you believe it or not. There was a plagued wolf among us, which means it was easy for my mother to get close and manipulate anyone she wanted. You can sit here and question whether I'm telling the truth or not, but that doesn't change the real, undeniable truth. My mother plans to destroy your homes and take control of your lives, I announced to the entire council room. Now was not the time for games or arguing. What do you suggest we do? Ronan asked, his voice filled with urgency. I exhaled deeply. Prepare for war. I'm leaving now, I said. I excused myself and quickly left the council room, rushing down the halls to Leora's room. Her room looked just the way it always had, except she was gone. A piece of paper lay on her bed, and I quickly picked it up to read. Dear Mistress. It has always been your wish for me to be mated as a werewolf should, and I found him. He seems very nice, and I'm sure you would approve of him. Nevertheless, I have no doubt that the goddess has made a mistake. I always knew we had a bond, you and I. I could feel the connection between us. She says we are sisters, our mother. I wanted it to be a lie, but at the same time, it gladdens my heart that we are sisters. I feel incredibly lucky. I get to share in the burden of having such a vile woman as a mother. You will always be my mother, my dear mistress, but for now, I am leaving to protect what I've come to cherish dearly. I know war is coming, and I am sure that you will win. Thank you for all the times we shared together. From Leora. What did she mean, you two are sisters? Celine asked, stunned. She had been reading the letter with me. The paper slipped from my hands and fell to the floor. We are sisters, we share the same evil mother. She gave Leora to me when she was just a child so she could carry out all her plans, I said, feeling completely defeated. I had failed Leora. I had failed in protecting her. All this time, I had been so focused on myself that I failed to see the truth right in front of me. Leora had found her mate, and I had no idea. Yet, she was meant to be under my care. What? Celine gasped, her voice filled with disbelief. How is that possible? She murdered her father too, I revealed. My mother plans to use the plagued wolves to attack us, which is why she has been attacking Pax, I explained. Another council meeting was called later that evening, and this time, the Alphas and Lunas appeared serious. They seemed to finally understand the severity of the situation. It pains me to say, but the missing pack members would have been turned into plagued wolves. Plagued wolves are extremely powerful and tough to kill. They are faster and much more aggressive, as you saw earlier today. The best way to defeat plagued wolves is to eliminate the witch controlling them, which is Lady Ingrid. However, I fear the battle will be much bigger than that. Lady Ingrid has sought help from a witch clan known as the Black Coven. They are very powerful and driven by revenge. I will seek help from my coven, and if they agree to join the fight, we will do our best to handle the witches, while you hold off the plagued wolves until Seraphina can defeat Lady Ingrid, Celine explained. The council nodded in understanding. The dagger used to kill Malric is the only weapon that can truly defeat my mother. I was told it is in your possession, my king, I said to King Ronan. He nodded and pulled the dagger from his pouch. I stepped forward and took it from him, staring at the blade with intensity. Once upon a time, I had searched for this dagger, the last of its kind. Now, it was in my hands, but for a different reason. Thank you, I added. When will this war happen? Ronan asked. I plan for us to strike at my mother's hideout. It's better that way than waiting for her to come to us. It will give us the upper hand, I replied. This will be difficult. She's incredibly strong, and finding her won't be easy, but we need to prepare starting today. Call your pack warriors and try to hide the rest of your pack members. That won't be easy. There are thousands of wolves, including females and children. It will be hard to protect them while the warriors fight, an alpha from one of the packs said. I never said it would be easy, but there's never been anything easy about war. You have to try. I have a feeling my mother won't go after packs one by one. She'll aim directly for the throne. It's the quickest way for her to secure what she wants, ruling the werewolf world, I answered. Ronan's face darkened, and Illyra looked tense. My mother would go after them, specifically. She would try to take them out, and no one would be strong enough to stop her. If she succeeded, the werewolf world would have no choice but to bow down to her. To sum it up, the king and queen's lives are in danger, and if they fall, your world will have no choice but to submit to her, I added. I will try to find her whereabouts in 3 days. It's a short time, but I cannot risk her attacking the palace before then, if she doesn't attack first. My mother wants a reaction from me. She's taken someone dear to me, and I will use that opportunity to gather the information I need. Be vigilant from now on and prepare for anything. I concluded. Chapter 26. At the break of dawn, 4 council members, King Ronan, Celine, Kael, and I, set off for Celine's coven. The coven was just as I remembered, dark and almost lifeless. Its grounds were as vast as the werewolf palace grounds, but it lacked the life and energy that the werewolf king's palace had. I recalled the last time I had visited, over 2 centuries ago, when Celine had tried once again to get me into the coven. But, once again, they rejected me. They had made it clear where I stood in their world. I was strange and different, and they did not want that. I never thought the day would come when a werewolf king would stand before us, came the voice of Celine's mother, Celine. She was the head of the coven and a high-ranking member of the order. Your ancestors were very clear about their feelings toward our kind. What is it that you seek here, King Ronan? Celine rolled her eyes at her mother's words. They were never close, but they were family, and they did their best to tolerate each other, most of the time. We stood in their council room, where 6 members of the order were present, 3 women and 3 men, all dressed in long red robes. They sat on throne chairs with stern, unblinking faces, clearly displeased with our visit. I wouldn't be here if this matter wasn't of great importance, and if it didn't affect your kind as well, Ronan said, speaking boldly. He may have needed their help, but there was no way he was going to bow down to anyone. Are you certain this affects us, young king? Celine raised an eyebrow, and Celine rolled her eyes again. Before Ronan could respond, Celine spoke up. Of course it affects us. We have lost control of the other world, the world where my father was imprisoned, along with others from our kind. You've left it at the mercy of a newly turned witch, while you sit on your thrones acting all high and mighty, Celine responded sharply. A deep frown settled on Celine's face, clearly displeased with her daughter's words. Ingrid may have a good reason for her actions. The werewolves killed her true love and banished her, leaving her to fend for herself and her child. In my opinion, her reasons are justified. Seraphina here is acting like an ungrateful child. Your mother is fighting for your father's honor, and you should be proud, she shot back. How can it be justified if the ones who supposedly committed the crimes are long dead? But, I'll be happy to inform you that Lady Ingrid lied. You've all been fooled, Celine retorted, her voice sharp and certain. Celine's eyes narrowed at her daughter, studying her for a moment before exchanging a strange look with the other members of the order. And we are supposed to believe this? Celine asked. What could be worse than trying to take the werewolf kingdom? Pure greed, I responded firmly. I'm certain she won't stop once she has taken the werewolf world. She'll come after your coven as well. My mother wants to rule everything. This is far beyond revenge, because there is no revenge if she is the one who actually killed my father, I boldly declared. Lies. Celine slammed her fist against the arm of her throne. Is it, mother? Or are you just refusing to see the truth that's right in front of you? I countered. The order believes it knows everything, but it doesn't. If Ingrid were just after the werewolves, she could have gone straight for them. Why did she have to take control of the other world? Celine added, explaining it further. I'll show you, I said, stepping forward. Celine and her mother were like fire and ice, anything could spark an argument now, and we didn't want that. I walked up to Celine and held out my hands to her. She hesitated for a moment but then took my hands. She began chanting some spells, and after a few moments, I felt her mind slip into my own. After a while, she pulled away. She glanced at Kael, and I realized that she had seen what I had seen. Your goddess has favored you at last, she whispered, and then turned to her comrades. I stepped away from her, watching as she spoke louder. She speaks the truth. Ingrid is a deceiver. We should inform the Black Coven at once about this deception, one of the male members of the order said. Sadly, we cannot. It's too late, and it wouldn't matter now, Celine replied. And why is that? Ronan asked, his voice slightly forceful, making Celine sneer a bit as they locked eyes, sharing a tense stare. Sanguis vinculum sororum, she responded, and both Celine and I widened our eyes in shock. What does that mean? One of the councilmen, named Sanders, asked. Blood bond of sisters, I whispered, but I was sure everyone in the room heard me. It's an old ritual. Most covens don't participate in that type of magic anymore. It binds the souls of witches, tied together by a shared goal. They can't back out until the task is finished. I now understand why Lady Ingrid sought help from the Black Coven. She must have researched them and discovered that they still practice the old ways. She knew they were driven by revenge and would perform that ritual to ensure her plan succeeded, Celine explained. How do you know this is true, Lady Celine? I asked, wondering if maybe she had misunderstood something. I have a sister in the Black Coven, Seraphina. She was the one who told me about the ritual they performed. They are focused on destroying the werewolf community. Even if they learn the truth now, it won't matter. Those who took part in the ritual must see it through, whether they want to or not. The ritual can only be broken when the task is completed or when the one who started the ritual, Lady Ingrid, dies, Celine explained. Then all we need to do is kill Ingrid. That's why we want you to help us fight, Ronan declared. You expect us to fight against our sisters, dear king? Celine sneered. It's not easy to defeat Ingrid, not with the support of other witches. It's never simple to kill a witch. We have the dagger. I announced, and the members of the order gasped, exchanging confused glances. What dagger? Celine's eyes narrowed at me. There haven't been any daggers for centuries. They were all destroyed long ago. You're wrong, Lady Celine. I have one in my possession, and I'm willing to demonstrate its power if anyone wants to volunteer, I said, pulling the dagger from my crossbag. The members of the order gasped in shock, exchanging bewildered looks. How did you come to have that? Celine asked, still clearly thrown off by the revelation of the dagger. Not everyone seeks immortality, Lady Celine. Some of us see it as a curse. It doesn't matter how it came into my possession. What matters is that it exists, and I have it, I replied firmly. It shouldn't exist, she spat. It does exist, Celine. And I have a feeling there might be more of these daggers hidden somewhere. Our existence is tipping the balance of nature. No one is meant to live forever, I said. Are you suggesting we should cease to exist? Celine frowned, clearly offended. We are not responsible for the mistakes of our ancestors. But it is in our hands to shape the present and the future. If you choose not to fight, the werewolf community will fall, and my mother will come after your world next, I said, my voice steady and determined. Celine suddenly burst out laughing. Your mother can't come after our world. The Black Coven would never have agreed to that ritual if it meant falling under your mother's control. Young one, your mother only wants to conquer the werewolf world, and I don't see the problem with that. Maybe it will even improve the way the werewolves live, she said with a shrug. Ronan growled loudly, but the members of the order remained unfazed. Are you trying to fight me in my own house? Celine asked dryly. Mother. Celine interjected, her voice sharp. You would let father fall under the control of that woman? My dear child, the order will find a way to take that world back from Ingrid. This fight simply doesn't concern us, Celine responded. Your kind is waging war against mine out of foolishness, Ronan gritted through his teeth. Celine glared at him for a moment before turning her gaze to me. Perhaps we are willing to join your fight if you vow to give us the dagger after you've used it on your mother, she suggested. I looked at Ronan for confirmation, and he nodded in agreement. I agree, I breathed out, and a wide smile spread across Celine's face. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting subsequent interesting daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 27. We returned to the palace as soon as we reached an agreement with the order. The palace was in complete chaos, with warriors rushing back and forth, moving in every direction. The air was filled with panic, despite the warriors' efforts to stay organized. It was clear none of them wanted war. War was never a good thing, and it was certainly not something anyone looked forward to. Times had changed. In the old days, I had watched men seek out war for glory, but it only led to destruction and pain, things I never wanted to witness again. Yet, here it was, knocking at our door. How do you plan to get your mother's attention? Celine asked once we were settled in the far corner of my room. Kael was with us too, but he hadn't said much about how he felt. I knew he didn't need to speak, all he wanted was to stand by my side. I wondered how I would feel if he had been the one taken by my mother. What I would do was confusing, but I knew exactly what I would have done. I would have followed in Leora's footsteps. I plan to use Leora, I answered. Celine looked at me, her eyes wide. Like, take control of her body, she asked, and I nodded. It's not an easy spell, she pointed out. I took out a piece of paper from my cross bag. It was Leora's letter. I know, but it's the only way, I said softly. You know this will only work if she allows you to take control of her body. Leora is extremely protective of you. I'm sure she'll try her best to keep your mother away from you, Celine reminded me. I know, but she doesn't need to. My mother's will isn't easily swayed, I said, walking over to the drawers and pulling out candles. I made a small circle with them and placed Leora's letter in the center. It would act as a connection between us. I lit the candles with my powers. Closing my eyes, I began chanting spells. I could feel the ground beneath me vibrate slightly, and then I felt the air shift. When I opened my eyes, I was in a room, a strange, old room. Leora was sitting by the bed, holding the hand of a young man. This was her mate. He had bruises on his face, but he was awake. Leora's eyes were filled with tears, and my heart ached. She was in pain. I stepped closer and placed my hand on her shoulder. She immediately felt my presence and jerked around to face me. Mistress, how are you here? She asked, jumping up from the stool she was sitting on. Shoo! I whispered. She nodded her head in understanding, but perhaps too vigorously. I looked at her mate and then back at her. He looks handsome. He looks good, I complimented. Thank you, mistress, she sniffled, wiping her face. I'm 2 years older than him, she added. I chuckled softly, trying to lighten the mood. We are sisters after all. Younger men seem to like us. Sisters, she murmured. I gently took her hand. I'm sorry that you had to be born to such an evil woman. But it brings me happiness to know that you are my sister, my flesh and blood. You were always like a daughter to me, Leora. I've truly been blessed having you by my side all these years. I'm glad too, mistress, she said softly. We're sisters, Leora. Calling me mistress has to stop now. Okay, she muttered, nodding her head. Do you know where you are, Leora? I asked. No, I don't. The witches who brought me here blinded me so I couldn't see anything, she replied. That's fine, I said. I'm coming to get you, Leora. But I need your help. It's the only way to win the war that's coming. What do you need me to do? Me, sister, she stuttered, and I smiled warmly at her for using that title. I need to know where you are, and I need to take control of your body. Do I have your permission? Absolutely, I'll do anything for you. But what will happen to me while you're in control? She glanced at her mate, clearly worried about him. You will still be there, but I'll be in control. Don't worry, Leora. I'll protect him while I do my duty, I assured her. Okay, what do I need to do? She asked as I reached out my hands. Place your hands on mine, I instructed, and she immediately complied. As soon as I entered her body, I felt dizzy, nearly losing my balance, but I quickly steadied myself. I sat on the stool when there was a knock at the door. A dark-skinned girl, dressed in a white gown, walked into the room. Her face was completely emotionless, and from her aura, I could tell she was a witch. Your mother requests your presence at the dining table, she said, her voice neutral. I will escort you there. I stood from the stool and nodded, following her as she turned and walked out of the room. We moved down the hallway, which felt unusually long. I tried to use my power to sense where we were, but it wasn't working. I wasn't fully accustomed to Leora's body yet, and time was running out. Where exactly are we? I asked, but received no reply. Your comrades did not do well to inform me when they took me from the palace, I added, but she still didn't respond. She continued walking, acting as if I hadn't said a word. Can you hear me? I asked loudly, and she suddenly stopped, turning to face me. You are quite talkative this evening. I see you no longer have tears left to shed, young one, she said in a cold, emotionless tone. Her words struck me, and I fell silent. Leora had been crying for so long. There you are, back to your usual self, she added, before turning her back and continuing down the hall. I didn't say another word and simply followed her. Oh, it's so good you finally joined us, my dear child. How is Tyler? I hope he's resting well. My mother's voice was sweet and excited as I entered the dining hall. I'll send people to ensure he's getting proper care. Now, come to me, my child, she gestured, motioning for me to come into her embrace. I watched her carefully, sensing something was off. She was acting as though she were a real mother, concerned for her child's well-being. I stepped up to her, and she pulled out a chair at her side for me to sit in. I took my seat, still watching her intently, trying to figure out her true intentions. But she wore such a bright smile that anyone else would have believed she had pure intentions. You treat her like a child, a witch with bright red hair sitting next to my mother spat, her words laced with disdain. Well, she is my child. I haven't had the chance to do these things with her since she was young, my mother replied, handing me a plate of food before taking her seat. Oh, well, enjoy yourself then, the same witch muttered. Your eldest refuses to join us. She sides with the wolves instead of defending her father's honor. She is still quite foolish, Esther. I'm sure she'll come to her senses soon, my mother replied smoothly, her lies rolling off her tongue as easily as breathing. The other witches in the room had clearly been blinded by her words. "How soon are you talking about, Ingrid, when we plan to attack them tomorrow?" Esther asked dryly. My eyes widened in shock. Tomorrow? They were planning to attack us tomorrow? You can't do that. I slammed my hands down on the table in a fit of instinctive rage. My mother's eyes locked on mine, and I instantly realized my mistake. I had exposed myself. Without warning, she grabbed my right hand and squeezed tightly. She inhaled deeply and closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she let out a breath. "Seraphina," she shouted. I yanked my hand away from hers, but she burst into a fit of manic laughter. "You're smarter than I thought, Seraphina," she said, her smile lingering after her laughter subsided. "But you're not stronger." Her expression shifted to a scowl, and before I could react, I felt her choke me with her magic. I gasped and struggled to breathe as my neck constricted under her power. "Out!" she shouted at the top of her lungs, and immediately, my spirit was pulled out of Leora's body. "Be ready, Seraphina. We're coming," she said, her voice chilling as Leora's body regained control. Leora's eyes were wide with fear as she stared at me, but then I heard a deafening crack, and her body fell limp, lifeless. Her eyes rolled to the back of her head. "No!" I screamed as loud as I could, feeling my spirit being ripped from the dining room and back into my own body. I opened my eyes, gasping for air. "Leora's dead." I cried. "She's coming." Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 28. Leora was gone. Leora was gone. Those words echoed in my head like a broken record, each time more painful than the last. Celine was holding me, but I felt numb, completely defeated. My mind had frozen, and my body followed. Kael's face was full of sorrow, tears rolling down his cheeks without effort while I struggled to grasp the reality of the situation. Images of Leora flashed in my mind all at once, hitting me like a slap to the face. I had failed. The war hadn't even started, and I had already lost. I heard quiet whimpers in my ears, and it took me a moment to realize that it was me making those sounds. Then the tears came, flowing freely down my face. "Seraphina, I am so sorry," Celine whispered gently. "But it's not," my voice cracked. I was choking on my tears, but I didn't want to stop crying. I felt I deserved this. I had failed to protect the one person who meant so much to me. I had failed my sister. I killed her. It's all my fault. I made my mother kill her, I sobbed violently, my body shaking. "This is not your fault, Seraphina. This is not your fault," Celine tried to console me, but it didn't feel like it could be fixed by simple words. "How is it not my fault?" I asked bitterly. I knew I was wrong to direct my anger at her, but I couldn't help it. Celine's eyes filled with sorrow as she struggled to find the right words to calm me down. She took a deep breath and spoke with a voice full of empathy. "Seraphina, I understand your pain and your guilt, but you have to listen to me. You didn't make your mother kill Leora. That was her choice. She's consumed by darkness, and she killed her own child out of her greed." Celine's words pierced through the fog of my grief, and I looked at her, searching her eyes for something to hold on to. "But I couldn't save her," I whispered, my voice broken. "I couldn't save my own sister." Celine squeezed my shoulders tighter, her voice filled with resolve. "You may not have been able to save Leora, but that doesn't mean you failed. You loved Leora, and she loved you. That matters, Seraphina. You can't blame yourself for what your mother did. She made her own choices, and she will have to face the consequences. We will defeat her. We will avenge Leora's death." "I don't want vengeance," I said, my voice barely audible. "I just want her back. She has a mate. He's young. How will he cope with this? How will I face him after what I've done?" If I hadn't taken control of her body, she wouldn't have died. My mother made Leora food, like a loving mother would. She looked at her with joy in her eyes, and for a moment, I questioned the evil in her heart. But I foolishly revealed myself, angering her, and it cost me Leora's life. I cried out, my words full of grief. Celine's face dropped into sadness again. She looked over at Kael, who, like me, seemed broken. Kael walked up to me and gently picked me up from the floor, bringing me to the bed. I don't have words that can comfort you, Seraphina, and it hurts me to watch you go through so much pain. But I'm here. You can cry, you can scream, you can hit me, whatever you need, I'm here for you, he said softly. I looked at him, my heart breaking at his words. I pulled him into me, and he immediately wrapped his arms around me, pulling me into a hug. I'm here, he whispered as he stroked my hair. The pain didn't go away, and I didn't think anything ever could take it away, but at least I didn't feel completely alone anymore. Celine gave me a small, reassuring smile and a slight nod. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in the bed, my mind endlessly replaying Leora's death. Kael, too, couldn't sleep and did his best to comfort me. I would toss and turn and cry, and it felt like an endless battle. As the first light of dawn arrived, I immediately got out of bed, and Kael did the same. My face had lost all its color as I stared at myself in the mirror. I looked empty, lifeless, but I couldn't afford to stay like that. War was knocking on our doorstep, and I needed to fight. I needed to stop my mother before she succeeded in taking away the people I still cared about. I quickly cleaned myself up and put on some trousers, and by the time I finished, Kael was already waiting for me, fully dressed. The warriors are gathering at the grounds outside the palace gate. We'll wait for your mother there, he said. I nodded, and we both headed out of the room. Celine was waiting outside, and she gave me a reassuring pat on the shoulder before we all left the hallways together. By the time we arrived at the grounds, the wolves were already gathered. King Ronan stood at the front of the warriors, like a true leader, with his beta, Thorn, by his side. When he saw me, I walked up to him with Kael and Celine by my side. I heard about what happened, priestess. I'm sorry for your loss, he said, his face showing sadness. Thank you, my king. Leora will live on in me. The past can't be changed, but the future is still in our hands, I replied, and he nodded in agreement. At that moment, the witches from Celine's coven arrived. They didn't seem like fighters, more like observers, but I knew they were here for the battle. Our deal had been struck. There hasn't been a battle like this in centuries. It's almost fascinating, Celine said when she finally reached us. The other witches mingled with the wolves but kept to themselves. Celine glared hard at her mother. There's nothing fascinating about war, mother. Your excitement makes you look vile. Maybe it does, but I came. My people came. They are willing to fight by your sides, Celine said, glaring at her daughter. I thank you for coming, Ronan spoke up this time. Fighting by our side, at a price, Celine muttered under her breath, but those near her heard it. Nothing is free in this world, my dear. This world is not a fantasy, Celine shot back. Our existence is a fantasy to humans if you haven't heard, and there's something called compassion. But I suppose yours withered away centuries ago, Celine responded. A scowl appeared on Celine's face, clearly unhappy with her daughter's public challenge. I wasn't pleased either. Now was not the time for us to argue like enemies. The real enemy had yet to arrive. Enough. I shouted. Your arguing isn't helping. Thank you for coming, Celine. Keep your end of the bargain, and I'll keep mine. I took the dagger from my belt and held it firmly in my hand. Of course, Celine said quickly, her eyes watching the dagger in my grip, but she didn't say anything else. Celine snorted, but she too fell silent. The grounds grew quiet as we waited for my mother's arrival. My heart was racing in my chest, but I tried to keep my composure. I had never felt this kind of fear before in my life. Leora was gone, and it hurt me deeply to know that many lives would be lost today. Some of the warriors here would never go home to their families. It broke me, but I knew that war had never been an option in the first place. Then, the ground started to shake violently. The sound of wolves running filled the air as they moved through the bushes in front of us. And then, I saw her. She stood there, smiling brightly, completely devoid of remorse for the death of my sister, her own child, her flesh and blood. She was dressed like she was preparing for a coronation, so confident that she would win this war. I wouldn't let that happen. Even if it cost me my life, we would go together. I've been received warmly, she said, her voice strong, as her army of witches and plagued wolves gathered behind her. The war had begun. Chapter 29. I've been welcomed warmly, she said with a wicked grin as her army assembled behind her. You don't have to do this, mother. Surrender now, and let this war end, I said firmly from where I stood across the field. I think it's too late for that now, my dear. I killed your sister, but you're so ready to forgive me. Quite pathetic, don't you think, she replied. Her eyes were full of hatred, and her smile oozed with arrogance. The weight of the moment pressed down on me, heavy with the reality of what was at stake. This was the moment of truth, the outcome of all the darkness and pain that had built up over the years. I knew that how this battle turned out would decide the fate of everyone standing there. Dear King, are you going to forgive me too? She mocked, gesturing to the plagued wolves growling beside her. These are your people, turned into monsters. Do their lives mean so little to you? She was trying to provoke Ronan, and she was starting to succeed. I could see his fists tightening, his struggle to keep his composure. Forgiveness isn't in my book, Ronan growled. My mother's smile grew even wider. I really like you, dear King. You aren't blinded by those sentimental feelings. My fellow sisters, this woman has deceived you all, Celine spoke, turning to the witches behind my mother. It is you who has been fooled, Esther shot back. You fight alongside these mutts, you're willing to betray your sisters and attack your own kind. You've always been slow, Esther. That's why you're so easily manipulated, Celine snapped back. A scowl appeared on Esther's face, and Celine couldn't help but smirk, clearly proud of her mother's response. Celine waved her hand in the air, and like a movie playing out, she showed the witches the truth. The witches behind my mother were thrown off balance as they saw what was really happening. You lied to us, Ingrid, Esther said, her face full of disgust. You were easy to trick, Esther, my mother said with a smug smile. Your coven is driven by revenge. There's something about that thirst that fuels your souls, and I took advantage of it. She shrugged. It's a pity you had to learn the truth today, but I knew it would come out. That's why I made us perform the blood bond of sisters. You will do my bidding until I tear the head off their king, she yelled maniacally, her eyes turning completely black. Enough of the talking, let's begin. At her command, the plagued wolves, driven by her power, rushed toward us, followed by the witches. They were all acting under her control. Attack! Ronan shouted, and the warriors charged forward in response, rushing into battle with the plagued wolves. The witches alongside Celine attacked the witches under my mother's control. The battle was brutal, and I watched as both plagued wolves and werewolf warriors dropped to the ground easily. A frown formed on my face. There was no turning back now. I had to fight for the good people and for Leora's memory. I charged toward my mother, and as she saw me coming, her grin widened. It's beautiful, isn't it? Fighting each other, daughter. This will be remembered in history. I'll make sure to carry your memory when you leave this world, she taunted. And it made me furious. I raised my hand, using my magic to lift her off the ground and throw her across the field. She landed gracefully. You'll have to do better than that, child, she spat, using her magic to pull me toward her. In a swift motion, she slammed me to the ground, her magic pressing against my body as she hit me again and again. Leora, no. Kael shouted, and I saw him rushing toward me, trying to save me. Oh, the dear maid is coming to rescue you. Should I give you the honor of watching him suffer right before your eyes? She sneered. She used her power to drag Kael toward her, choking him completely. He struggled, trying to shift into his wolf form, but he couldn't break free from her grip. She held me down, and I fought against her magic. She was so strong, far stronger than I expected. My heart shattered as I watched Kael's face drain of color, struggling for air. "Kael, no!" I shouted, and an incredible power surged through me. It was like every ounce of pain, anger, and determination I had ever felt was channeled into one single moment. With a primal scream, I released a burst of raw energy, breaking free from my mother's hold and sending her flying backward. She landed with a loud thud and coughed up blood. I immediately ran over to Kael and helped him to his feet. "Shift," I commanded. "Help the others." "I can handle her alone," I added. He hesitated for a moment but nodded and shifted into his wolf form, rushing into the heated battle surrounding us. My mother stood up, brushing herself off. "So, you do have strength in you. I must admit, I'm quite proud. If only Leora had a bit of your strength, maybe she'd still be alive right now," she said coldly. "Shut your mouth," I warned, fury rising in me. "How dare you speak of Leora that way? How dare a mother kill her own child?" I spat, disgusted by her. She chuckled. "Leora was completely pathetic. I shouldn't have left her in your care. You raised her to be weak." "Shut up," I screamed, charging at her and landing a punch to her face. She stumbled backward. "You're a disgusting human being. It hurts me to be related to you by blood," I shouted. "Really?" she said, bursting into maniacal laughter, catching me off guard. That was when she used her magic to lift me into the air, binding me. I struggled to break free, but I couldn't. I could feel my energy being drained. "You have no use for your powers, my child. I'll make sure to take good care of them," she taunted. "No, you won't," Celine yelled, using her magic to throw my mother across the field. She landed with another thud. I broke free from the magical hold, and Celine caught me before I hit the ground. "Get your head in the game, Seraphina," Celine said, her voice sharp. "The wolves can't hold off the plagued wolves for much longer. They're stronger and faster. We need to end this now." I nodded, catching my breath, then used my magic to lift my mother off the ground, attempting to bind her just like she had done to me. But she stopped me. "I won't go down so easily," she yelled, her voice filled with rage. "You can't kill me." "But I can," I smirked, pulling out the dagger from my belt. Her eyes widened. "Do you know what this is?" she asked, panic creeping into her voice for the first time. "How did you get that?" she gasped, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. "It doesn't matter how it got into my possession," I said. "What matters is that it's here, and it will bring you your doom." "Never," she screamed, charging at me and knocking me off my feet. The dagger flew from my grasp, and she picked it up in one swift motion, plunging it into my stomach. Everything froze. "No!" I heard Kael and Celine scream as I fell to the ground. My mother burst into insane laughter, then crouched down to my level. "You should have tried harder, my dear child," she sneered. "You fought well, but I'll cherish this memory," she said, and I coughed up blood. It was over. I had lost. I wanted to fade, to slip away from this world, but I didn't feel myself fading. I should be fading. That was what the dagger was meant to do. Maybe this was my chance. Maybe the universe was giving me one last shot to save everyone, even if my life was over. Slowly, I pulled the dagger from my stomach. "I love you, Mother," I whispered, and for the first time, I saw her lose her composure. She stiffened, and I saw her take a step back. I seized the moment, plunging the dagger into her chest. She screamed in pain, stumbling away from me, and then it happened. Her body began to turn black. She coughed up blood, but it was black, too. "What have you done?" "No," she cried out in horror. "I'm taking this world from you," I spat. Her face twisted in rage, and her body began to disintegrate into pieces before fading away. I turned back to Kael. He got up from the ground and rushed toward me. Behind him, the plagued wolves began to fall to the ground. Their master was dead, so they would die with her, sacrifices in her sick game, just like Leora. Seraphina, please, Kael begged, lifting me gently into his arms. Don't leave me, he cried, pressing his lips to mine. I meant it when I said that I loved you, I managed to whisper. I love you, Kael. I love you, he replied, his voice filled with relief. A small smile crept onto my face. Any moment now, I would fade, just like my mother. Her death had been quick, because I had struck directly at her heart with the dagger. Seraphina, no. Celine screamed. It's okay, Celine, I whispered. It's all over now. We won. How can we have won when we're losing you? Celine sobbed, tears streaming down her face. I agree, a voice said, and I turned in shock. I never expected to hear that voice. Was I dreaming? Was I hallucinating because my end was near? My sister, the voice said again. And then Leora appeared before me, placing a soft kiss on my cheek. It was then that I realized this wasn't a dream. She was real. Leora was alive. You're alive? I coughed out in disbelief. Yes, I am, she replied softly. It was all part of her plan to weaken your spirit. I live, Seraphina, and so does my mate. The witches bound us together in the forest. The spell broke when you succeeded, mistress. A bright smile spread across my face. At least she did one good thing in her life. I don't think she's going to fade away, Celine said, and my eyes widened. You should have by now, Celine continued. The dagger doesn't work on you anymore. Your soul has been bound to your mates. You're dying, but you're dying like a wolf would. Can we do something to help her? Kael asked, desperately holding on to hope that I might survive. It made me want to live, too. My vision began to blur, and just before I succumbed to the darkness, I heard Celine's voice, barely a whisper. I will try my best. Chapter 30, Epilogue. 3 days later. Kael gently placed me onto a chair. I silently mouthed a thank you to him. He nodded in acknowledgement and sat next to me. Though I still felt pain, I was much better. After I had blacked out, Kael had explained that it took Celine and Celine's powers to bring me back to life. Now, I was still in the process of healing. Ronan was talking with his people as I watched, overseeing a ceremony to honor the fallen werewolf warriors and the werewolves who had been turned into plagued wolves. They were still his people. The atmosphere was heavy with sadness. The pain of the loss of their loved ones filled the air. Sons, daughters, and mates would never be seen again. We may have won the war, but the price had been steep. I shifted in my chair, uncomfortable, but I wanted to be here. I needed to share in their sorrow, even though I couldn't take it away. Are you sure you're okay? I can take you back to your room, Kael suggested with a worried expression. He was on edge, following my every move like he was afraid I might slip away from him. It upset him that I was no longer immortal, but at the same time, he was relieved. The dagger wouldn't be able to make me fade away anymore. For me, it was a blessing. Immortality had been a curse, and now, I was grateful to finally be able to age properly and leave this world when my time came. It was far better than watching Kael grow old while I stayed stuck in time. I'm fine, I said, offering a soft smile. But he didn't seem convinced by my words. I took his hand in mine and held it with my other hand. Kael, I want to be here, I added. He sighed but dropped his shoulders a little. Fine, he muttered after giving me a long glance. He turned his attention back to the front, where Ronan was still honoring the fallen warriors. I rested my head on Kael's shoulder, letting out a soft sigh. Once Ronan finished his speech, the mass burial began. A large plaque was mounted in front of the open graves, and family members of the deceased came one by one to say their final goodbyes. I didn't know any of these people, but I knew their sacrifice. They died fighting for their brothers, sisters, and king. I blew a kiss into the air, hoping that the moon goddess had accepted their souls. 2 months later. Ronan and Alira welcomed their son a week ago, naming him Astral. It gave us a reason to celebrate, though the sorrow for the fallen members of the various packs was still fresh in everyone's hearts. Astral's birth brought hope, a symbol of a new beginning. Ronan suggested I stay in the palace with Kael, Leora, and Celine. He thought it was time I lived as part of a pack. I hesitated at first, but then agreed. Kael had willingly left his pack to follow me, and Leora still loyally stayed by my side, dragging her mate along with her. But now, I understood the need for balance. Staying might bring that balance, though Celine couldn't stay. She had decided to pursue her human love interest and also needed to return to the coven, where they now had the dagger in their possession. I couldn't hold her back. She deserved her happiness, so I let her go, but not before making her promise she'd visit soon. I was getting dressed for a picnic with Kael. This time, I was the one who planned it, surprisingly, though Leora had helped a lot. I was finally going to give this a try. Kael and I had accepted being mates, but I knew I was a bit old-fashioned. People of this time did these things, and Kael had been trying to help me embrace them. He told me it was all about making memories, and now, I wanted to start creating good ones with him. As I slipped into a casual yet elegant dress, I felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Kael had been patient and understanding throughout everything, and I wanted to show him that I was ready to fully embrace our relationship. When I walked out of my room, I found Kael waiting for me in the hallway, a smile lighting up his face. He was dressed simply, his blonde hair falling slightly over his forehead. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice full of admiration. I blushed and thanked him, feeling warmth spread through me. We made our way to the palace gardens, where Leora had set up a lovely picnic spot under a large oak tree. The sun was shining brightly, casting a warm golden glow over everything. It was the perfect day for a picnic. Kael and I sat down on a blanket, surrounded by a variety of delicious food and drinks. We laughed and talked, sharing stories and dreams. It felt so natural and right to be in his company. As we ate and enjoyed each other's presence, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had come. From the night we first met to the battles we fought together, and now to this moment of peace and happiness, it had been an incredible journey. "I'm grateful for you, Kael," I said softly, gazing into his eyes. "You've stood by me through everything, and I've come to realize I can't imagine my life without you." His gaze was full of warmth and affection. "And I can't imagine my life without you either." "I love you always," he replied, his voice full of sincerity. "I love you always," I said back, smiling. We leaned in closer, our lips meeting in a gentle kiss. It was a sweet, tender moment filled with the promise of a future together. As we pulled apart, I looked around at the blooming flowers, the vibrant colors, and the beauty of the world around us. Challenges might still come our way, but with Kael by my side, I felt strong and ready for anything. I took his hand and placed it on my flat belly. "I'm with child," I smiled widely. He blinked, completely stunned by my announcement. "Are you sure?" "I can't smell him or her yet. It's still early, but I'm absolutely sure." A wide smile spread across his face, and before I could react, he picked me up and spun me around. "Thank you," he said as he kissed me, then gently placed me back on the ground. I smiled and hugged him tightly. "Thank you," I said. His embrace was warm, and in that moment, I knew that everything would be okay. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like and share this video to listen to more exciting stories from this channel.